When a carton says 100% juice, it means it's sugar, water, and mix all these flavorings and preservatives. So it's not real because all the fiber's been extracted out. All sugars, whether it's natural or artificial, they all break down into glucose. We absolutely do not need sugar in our diet. The way that these inflammatory oils are being produced, just really horrible conditions with like bleach and chemical, extremely heavily processed.
To make them a plant-based milk, there's so many fillers, and a lot of them have sugars, and there's a lot of preservatives and like a lot of gums. If you choose not to give them cow's milk, you have to work very hard to make sure they get enough calcium from foods. Double toned actually means it's been processed, and milk solids with water, so it's low fat. So don't offer your kids double toned milk. Hey parents, welcome to another episode of the Modern Indian Parent Podcast, a podcast that is redefining parenting in Indian families. I'm Sanchita Daswani, a pediatric nutritionist. As parents, when it comes to our kids' nutrition, we have so many questions. How much they should eat, which packaged foods to give them, is it okay to offer them packaged foods daily, how do we choose the best milk, how do we choose the best cheese, is juice okay for them? I mean, it is really, really overwhelming. As adults, so many of us have only started taking our health seriously recently, but when it comes to our kids, we want to make sure that they have the right foundation when it comes to their health. And guess what? In today's episode, we are joined with Monica Uttamchandani, who is a holistic health coach. Monica has been helping women around the world when it comes to making better choices about what we put into our body and being more aware of how our body feels, how we feel, and making better choices in general when it comes to anything related to the kitchen for us and our families. And in this episode, we are going to be breaking down some of the most common packaged foods and products that we offer our kids and how to make better choices when it comes to choosing them and knowing what to avoid and what to include to make sure that our kids build a positive relationship with food and are not ingesting anything we wouldn't want them to. So let's welcome Monica to the podcast. Welcome, Monica, to the Modern Indian Parent Podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm good. I woke up and did my morning ritual and got ready for this. So thanks for having me.
We have been chatting quite a bit because, as a mom and child nutritionist, I've been really intrigued about understanding what we are having in our kitchen in terms of the pantry staples and really seeing that today in the world, there's still so much marketing being done out there. There's so much confusion when it comes to offering our kids certain products. And we have been having a lot of conversations about how to identify what these ingredients are, what to look out for when it comes to, forget even our kids, but even ourselves, what we are taking in. And I know for me, for my story, my entire life, I just ate what I wanted because I was really skinny. And I never looked at food in terms of nourishing. I looked at it more as entertainment purposes and that feeling I would get. And it was only until I had my kids that I started to care. I think a lot of us have that same experience. And I'd love to hear from you about your journey in terms of how did you get into this field? Were you always conscious about food and wanting to make the right decisions?
So I think my passion for health really stemmed from when I was young. My mom just instilled it in us to, everything must be fresh and less processed food, does not like as much as possible. Just growing up and having that freedom, like in my teens and when I went to university, I just, like you, I went all out with eating whatever I wanted. I rebelled and just started to eat all these like processed foods. But then I realized soon after the impact it had on my body, and I had just severe bloating and insomnia and just mood issues and all sorts of things started to arise like very, very quickly after that. And then after marriage, I moved like across the other side of the world, like from the UK to Turks and Caicos, which is a small island. And I started to notice all these health changes, like just rapidly deteriorating. And so like a lot of produce, for example, wasn't from the UK, it's from America. So like the America, the size of the apples are not this small, they're that big, right? I was just getting used to a lot of like the processed food and how everything was just bulked up. And then when I had kids, trying to nourish them as much as possible with all the right food, making sure they're having real food and nothing really processed again. But that's helping me a lot as well, just become cleaner and wholesome with what I'm having.
Today, as parents, we really want to make better choices for our kids. And as you said, your mom instilled a lot of this in you. I think back in the day, also for our parents, times were different. So we ate a lot more at home. We didn't go out to eat. We did eat less packaged foods. So they were also kind of going with the flow. So I know it's great that your mom was able to instill a lot of these values from the beginning. But I think all of us, when we had our uni days and all, we got a bit carried away. And I think based on that experience, we're like, we want to set our kids up for success so that when they are on their own, they can actually make good choices. And I've learned so much from you. So I'm so excited to have you on the podcast to answer a lot of questions that I still get every day about common products in the house. Okay, so let's get started with the first one. I want to talk about fruit juices. So I get this question every day. We've had a chat about this. I get questions saying, can I give my baby juice? Is it okay? Because we think, okay, it's freshly squeezed, or squeezing an orange juice, or it says no sugar in it. So we get excited by that. And our kids love juice. So we think, okay, it's fine. So my question to you is it okay to offer our kids juices? Is it healthy?
So yeah, really good question. So it's really tough and challenging to navigate parameter of the supermarket because the like majority of the supermarket now is like these aisles with like filled with processed food, and a lot of greenwashing that's filled with like sugars and fillers and preservatives and additives and all sorts of things. And when it comes to juice, and then you have a can or a carton and it says 100% juice or it says no added sugars or fully from concentrate, it's very deceiving because how they create these juices is they completely dry it out. They try and add back these flavorings and preservatives and all these fortified vitamins, because they were lost during the evaporation process, and then all the fiber was lost as well. So really, it has no nutrients and it's filled with sugar.
You're saying that when they take an orange, what they do is they just take out the fiber, so all the pulp. They basically have that juice, and what they're doing is they're adding water, then they're adding extra things to it so that it's not actually juice. So you're saying that if it says 100% juice or no added sugar, it's not 100% juice? Just say.
Yeah, so when a carton says 100% juice, it means it's sugar, water, and mixed with all these flavorings and preservatives. So it's not real because all the fiber's been extracted out and these flavorings have been added in and all these extra vitamins that are naturally in occurring fruit. So why not just take an orange and squeeze it out yourself? Like how long does it take? It takes longer to go to the supermarket than to actually create this fiber-rich juice yourself. Like make your child have an orange and that's like filled with fiber. At the end of the day, when your child is having these juices, it makes them really hyper because it's sugar, and then their blood sugar spikes, and then it crashes, and then they crave more and more of the sugar. So that's a huge part because then it leads to so many other issues.
There's no need to get into these juices. Try and avoid as much as you can, guys, till at least 2 years of age, because we really want to focus on teaching the kids to chew, to enjoy the food, activate the enzymes in the mouth. Don't get tricked. Just because it says organic, just because it says 100% fruit juice, as Monica is saying, there is hidden stuff. They are adding things to it.
There are certain brands that are better than others, but I would say definitely pair that juice with protein snack or like a snack that's rich in healthy fats just to slow down that blood sugar spike. So it's like not coming down directly, but it's just slow.
And what is your view on vegetable juices? Because we have the fruit juices, which we know obviously have sugar, but vegetable juices, is that something you recommend? Is that okay for kids?
If it's homemade, yeah, much better than store bought. Just have to be mindful with any juice, even if you're making it at home, the fiber is being extracted if you're making it as a juice, like the pulp is the fiber. So again, pair it with something like a protein or a healthy fat. But of course, if they're having something like celery, it's not very high in sugar, it's very low glycemic, so you don't have to worry too much. Whereas with beetroot, it's higher, and carrot higher in glycemic.
So just because something is a juice or it's a health juice or you see people drinking it doesn't necessarily mean that our kids need to have it. Let them actually have actual food in its form and just chew it and enjoy it in its whole form. Now, Thanks so much for explaining about juices. I think this will be very informative for a lot of parents who feel that juice is a great healthy option. I want to talk next a little bit, since we're talking about sugar, because there's still so much questions about it, because we have so many different types of sugar. So I want to break it down. Of course, one, we have your white sugar, refined sugar, which everyone knows is something we want to avoid. But then I want to talk a little bit about the next stages which have come out. So you have your cane sugar, you have maple syrup, you have honey, you have date syrup, date sugar, coconut sugar. Now, what are these actually nutritious? Are they good for kids? Are these different forms of sugar nutritious for kids and safe for them to have?
So really good question. So all sugars, whether it's natural or artificial, all have, they all break down into glucose, either glucose, fructose, or sucrose. And these sugars provide energy, right? Like, so it doesn't matter what form you're getting, your body will still break it down in the same way. So whether it's coconut sugar, whether it's like white sugar, your body's still breaking it down the same way. However, if you're having coconut sugar or like honey, they do tend to have a lot more nutrients, minerals in them than refined sugar. So definitely opt for unrefined sugar wherever possible.
At least till 1 year of age, avoid all added sugar. Like, don't add any sugar except for when you're offering like a fruit, that's okay. But just don't add anything to it. A little bit of date syrup is okay. But post one, honey, maple syrup, jaggery still is okay. But end of the day, as you said, the body still processes it as sugar. So try and avoid as much as you can, guys, too. And then post two, if you want to make a muffin, you want to make a smoothie, and you want to add a little bit, as Monica said, go ahead and choose something like coconut sugar or date syrup, which actually has some nutrition value added to it as well. But then I want to ask you, when it comes to all these sugars, because so many times we have the elders in the family, right? They will come and tell us, no, you need to add sugar because it will help them gain weight. It's important calories for them. They need that. So can you help clarify for us, is adding sugar actually good calories? Because I get, as you said, it is end of the day broken down as energy. So it does give our kids energy, but is that the right way to go about it?
So we absolutely do not need sugar in our diet, any form of sugar. We do need carbs, and carbs are obviously in vegetables as well, like carrot and beetroot, sweet potatoes. So all of these, again, are still breaking down as sugar in the body. So do we need the added sugar? No, we don't. And also, I think you're the expert in this, but I don't know how much sugar a child should be having per day. Be very mindful that anything that you're giving your child, like, even if it's something like carrot, that also has like a certain amount of sugar in it, right? Like at the end of the day, it's breaking down the sugar in the body. I mean, every now and then, it's totally fine to have a little bit of jaggery in a muffin, or like coconut sugar, like as a treat. But their taste buds get so used to the sweet part of it that they want more and more of it. So it's better to, like before the age of 2, just them off it completely as much as possible, wherever it's possible. And yes, it does become challenging with parents and grandparents, because they're just like, oh, give them sugar, you've had sugar. But it's just one of those things, I guess, now that we have the knowledge and the experience with whatever we've been like over the past few years, we can educate
what you
them.
said about the amount of sugar. So till 2, we say no sugar. And then post 2, actually, we say about 24 grams of sugar a day is okay. And I think you've told me this before, something about how many teaspoons or tablespoons it is. Do you remember? Yeah, 6 teaspoons, right? So
Yeah,
I remember we had this
60.
discussion. So basically post 2, they can have the average around 24 grams, which is about 6 teaspoons of sugar. But if you look at just like a lollipop, it can have 8 to 12 grams of sugar. Even a popsicle, all these things can have. And this is the added sugar. But you're right. There's so many simple things in our diet that kids are eating, like even rice and sweet potato and carrot, that also have sugar, that are, in a way, they have carbs that are breaking down in the body. So we have to be very careful. I think it's when you look throughout the day and you see, when you add all the things up, I think that's where a lot of parents are getting lost, right? Because you don't realize that, oh, you're saying, okay, they can just let them have a lollipop, let them have ice cream. But then if you look at all the little things that are happening, which we don't even realize have added sugar. Like, I know sometimes when I take my kids out, like we go to Pizza Express, okay? They'll have an apple juice. Then they will have their pasta, which again, pasta is carbs and tomato sauce. And the tomato sauce, I'm sure they're adding sugar to that. And then in the end, they get ice cream. So just in that meal, I think they're having way more than just 24 grams of sugar with that. I think so, right?
Yes, yeah. Like just speaking about my kids, and I pack their school lunch, but in the morning they'll have like a pancake, but I'll usually sweeten it with a little bit of banana or applesauce. It'll be mixed with so many other things like healthy fats and protein. And then for lunch or just before their lunch, they have a snack. So it's fruit, usually fruit and crackers, maybe some nuts. And then for their lunch, they'll have whatever it is I'm giving them, and then I'll probably put in a little bit of fruit or like a cookie that I've made that's oats with banana or whatever it is. And then in the evening again, they'll want to, because they're on this wheel of having the sugar, they crave it more and more. But yeah, they're definitely already exceeding that 24 grams.
At this meal that my kids are having. So maybe you can help me with few hacks, because what I do is I tell my kids, okay, at least in the pasta, let's add some cheese on top, because at least the cheese is the protein to balance it out. And of course, if you're non-veg, then try and get a pasta sauce that has some meat in it. And I think a good idea would be maybe before the ice cream comes in, to have a few nuts or cashews like that you can easily carry. And then I think the juice eventually I probably need to swap out and maybe just I'll let them have regular water. Is there anything else you feel I could do with that meal to help make it a bit better?
The pasta meal,
Yeah.
definitely they are vegetarian, right? Yeah. So nutritional yeast is a great way to add that protein in, and because your kids are vegetarian, it's very high in B12 as well. Hemp is great. Hemp hearts, so adding in hemp hearts, I think like 3 tablespoons is around like 8 grams of protein. Yeah, like giving them some nuts that's high in protein.
I'm going to carry my cashews with me, and that's a good idea. Like I'll carry the hemp hearts and I can just really add it in the pasta sauce. And then they obviously give you Parmesan cheese, so I can add that in. And I think I'll just swap the apple juice for water. But yeah, of course, if we're making pasta at home, adding lentils in it, I know some people add tofu. I know another thing you can do is add coconut milk, right, in the pasta sauce so that it gets some good fats.
Yeah. And even so with the tomato sauce, definitely some tofu, some silken tofu in there makes it a lot more creamy as well. But yeah, definitely coconut milk is a great option. I guess if they're eating out, like even my kids, they will want that pizza and pasta, right? And I can't stop them. That's just something that they want. We're going out every now and then, so they have to enjoy themselves just like me too.
It's important also to teach our kids to have a good relationship with food, even the foods that necessarily aren't the most healthy. But like now my kids know, okay, we're having ice cream. They know they need to go have a few nuts before. So it's just about creating those habits so they can still enjoy these foods, but just learn how to manage how their body reacts. And I think another good thing is that always have your dessert post a meal so that your stomach is lined already, so that it's not on an empty stomach when you're having sugar. Is that something you'd advise as well?
Definitely, definitely last. Like even with fruit, last. Like not first. But there are certain things that you can do to help with your blood sugar as well. Like you could get them to go for a walk for about 10 to 15 minutes after they've had their ice cream. But also if you feel like they bloat or they feel unsettled after having ice cream, they could have some digestive enzymes.
So a lot of times our kids, the way they behave is a reflection of what they're eating. I remember I used to give my son oat milk because I was in this whole thing of should I give cow's milk or so, which we'll get into in a second. But I was giving oat milk and then I didn't realize that it's spiking his blood sugar levels and he was crashing and he was getting upset and having major tantrums. And I learned that much later, but now I see the direct correlation to what he was having. So really, if you feel your child at a certain point of days acting a certain way, also look at what they're eating. And speaking about oat milk, I want to ask you a little bit about oats. Because if you open Instagram, I have seen so many videos about how oats are not good and that they're the worst food for breakfast. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, because my son, his favorite breakfast is blueberry and oats. But I add the cow's milk, I add peanut butter, I add some chia seeds as well, and blueberries, which I've taught him is one of the best fruits in the world. So can you help clarify that for us? Why is there so much hate around oats, and is it really the worst breakfast option?
Oats are definitely not an unhealthy option. It's definitely something I give to my kids maybe twice a week, and I add all the things that you like similar to you. I'll add the almond butter, I'll add the collagen and all these berries and like seeds as well, and coconut and all these like healthy, nourishing foods. But if they are having oats on its own, then it does start to again spike the blood sugar because it's pretty high on the glycemic level. So again, you have to pair the oats with certain foods. It is also a little bit higher in protein, oats, so it's not a bad option if you are vegetarian. But I would say definitely opt for an organic or a gluten-free brand because oats are very heavily sprayed with pesticides like glyphosate. So glyphosate is one of those like pesticides that are extremely hard to detox from the body. So the gluten-free option means that it's not sprayed with this pesticide. I would say going for like steel cut oats is much easier for the body to digest, easier for your kids' bodies to digest.
What about there's different types of oats, as you were saying. So I give my kids the rolled oats, and I found this great brand, Farmers We Know, which has sprouted ones. But I know there's rolled oats. So there's steel cut oats, then there's rolled oats, which obviously the rolled oats are flattened. So it's not the best, but it's still decent. Now, can you explain to us, because I know a lot of people are eating the quick cook oats or the instant oats. Are those okay?
I think those are completely fine. And it's convenient. It's ease, right? We don't have much time, so it's the quickest option. But again, go for the gluten-free and the organic version. But if you do have that extra time and you want to batch cook, I would batch cook steel cut oats. They do take longer to cook, but they are much easier
Okay.
somewhat to absorb. Having oats will also stabilize you'll get a lot more energy by having steel cut oats.
What is the difference? Like, what has happened to the oats to make it instant?
They are just more processed. Great reasons.
I think for kids, then it would be better to stick to the steel cut oats, or if rolled oats, would you say those two are the best options?
Yeah, old-fashioned rolled oats. The option is the option I go for. Again, I don't have the time to pressure cook these steel cut oats.
Before we get into dairy, which is such a big topic, I do want to quickly touch upon oils for cooking, because most households, we've grown up eating food that is cooked in sunflower oil and canola oil. And now for our kids, we are making that conscious effort to use better oils like ghee, coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil. So can you clarify for us parents, why are vegetable oils not a good choice for our kids and for us?
So canola oil and sunflower oil and all of these inflammatory oils are really rich in omega-6. And we get a lot of omega-6 already in our diet. So to be exposed to so much more can then create this excess of omega-6, which then leads to inflammation. And the way that these inflammatory oils are being produced, like in just really horrible conditions. So they're produced with like bleach and all these chemicals and solvents and steam, and it's extremely heavily processed. And to feed that to our kids is like torture to them, really. And when we're going out, we're reusing these oils, or we're eating at home, we're frying things in these oils, reusing these oils. It creates a lot more inflammation in the body. It actually like poisons the body, it's very toxic. And we all know that this canola oil or sunflower oil, they're in every single processed food, right? It's the easiest, cheapest oil that these companies can produce.
I have two questions. One is, what is the best oil for deep frying then? Because, in Indian households, we like to fry stuff. Of course, our kids, we're giving them less, but once in a while, we want our kids to enjoy fries. So what is the best option for deep frying for oils?
So I would say like an organic expeller pressed sunflower oil, but not to reuse that oil. So just use it once and then that's it.
Other oils you can also consider using is, some people like to use groundnut oil and mustard oil as well. And can you deep fry with ghee?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's got a high smoke point. But I would say deep frying creates inflammation. So really deep frying is not the best option to go with.
I actually wanted to ask you, because I get this question a lot, that should we use air fryers for our kids? And the idea, a lot of people are saying no, because the heat and the electricity is using is not safe or it's good. Of course, you're able to use less oil. Then there's another school of thought where people are saying that don't use the air fryer and just enjoy the fried food once in a while. And because once you have the air fryer, you tend to use it a bit more than you might need to. So you were mentioning about how it's the type of air fryer you get.
Yeah, I would definitely go for stainless steel air fryer. So I would definitely go for stainless steel air fryer. The reason being is because if you get one that's coated in this black coating, it then emits this chemical into the food while it's baking or frying. And yes, we use less oil, but it's a much better option to go with the stainless steel. But I would say when you come to frying, air frying, reduce the temperature down. So you're not cooking at really high temperatures, but you're cooking at, say, 300 degrees Fahrenheit, like fries, and then you're increasing it towards the end just to kind of get the finishing done, the coating and making it a bit more crispy. But initially, until it's cooked, cook on lower temperature.
I want to talk now about dairy. So dairy is a huge topic, especially when it comes to kids, because I get a lot of questions that should I even offer my child cow's milk? Should I give them yogurt? And I want to talk first about my experience with cow's milk, because when I had my kids, they were on formula. And then when they were one, I actually continued the formula for a bit because they were preemie and I was also not sure what to do. And then I started hearing a lot about, the cows are treated badly and they're injected with hormones. And I was getting nervous. So I said, I'm not giving it to them. I was like, okay, let me just give them calcium supplements. And I was doing oat milk and soy milk. And also what I realized is that a lot of these plant-based milks, to make them a plant-based milk, there's so many fillers and a lot of them have sugars and there's a lot of preservatives and like a lot of gums and all of this stuff. And I always have this chat with you and you always make a very important point that when you're looking at stuff, you have to look at how much they're eating. So, okay, a cookie might have a certain preservative or gum, and it's okay once in a while, but if your child is having this every day and different foods, it will add up. It will affect the gut. So when it came to the plant-based milk, I realized it's not something I wanted to give my kids. And then when I started learning about nutrition for kids, I understood that they need a lot of calcium in the first few years. And if you choose not to give them cow's milk, you have to work very hard to make sure they get enough calcium from foods. And that's difficult if you have a picky eater or someone who's taking time to get comfortable with that. So then I actually now give my kids cow's milk because for a vegetarian, I feel that B12, protein, fat, calcium, all of this you can get in cow's milk. And it just helps also like for the porridge, the oats porridge. Instead of putting oat milk, I put cow's milk. And I think it really helps balance the meal a bit. So for me, what I look for, I get this in Hong Kong. We get one from New Zealand, which is from grass-fed cows. Now, I'm not really sure if they're injected or not, but I feel like for me, this is the best option. So I'd love to hear your view. Do you feel cow's milk is important, especially for that toddler age?
We have to be very mindful of like intolerances, sensitivities now that exist, that never exist, like in our parents' generation. As you said, that the cows are treated differently and now pumped with hormones. So we just have to really look out for these signs that it might not work well with our child. So I would say if cow's milk doesn't work as well, then definitely sheep's milk is a lot easier. It doesn't contain lactose, which is a protein that exists in milk. When it comes to choosing cow's milk, definitely go for grass-fed, just as you're doing. So grass-fed, grass-finished, if possible, organic and whole milk so that they're getting all that rich, healthy fats for brain.
Right. So what about goat milk? Is that an option?
Goat's milk, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And even with cheese, I know we're coming on to cheese, but goat's cheese, sheep's cheese, if they have reaction to dairy.
So post one, goat's milk, sheep's milk, cow's milk these are options. If you don't want to do any of those, work on high calcium foods. You just have to be a little diligent, but it is possible. And when you're looking for milk, make sure it's organic, full fat, and grass-fed so that at least you know that it is wholesome and that the nutrition is there. So let's move on to, yes, my favorite topic, cheese. Now, cheese is something a lot of kids love. And I want to tell parents that I think majority of the cheese brands out there in the supermarket today are not a great option for our kids. I was just talking to Monica earlier about certain brands in India because a lot of my clients are from India. We have these sliced cheeses, okay? And or cheese sticks, or we have cheese spreads. So these are cheeses that have been, and they literally say processed. So once you see that word, I think we know that that's a trigger that, okay, a red flag. Now, why we use these for our kids? Because number one, they really taste good. So the way they are processed, like kids love it. Number two, they've been made in a way that's easy to offer kids. You can just give them a cheese stick. You can just add that slice of cheese in there. So cheeses like Amul, Britannia, all these cheeses that say processed. Monica, can you tell us what's happening in this process and why these cheese slices from companies like Amul, Britannia are not a good option for our kids?
So processed cheese, like Amul, contains a lot of sodium nitrate, which is a preservative, but also a lot of additives, saturated fat, and it ends up being like a lot less cheese and more of the other things to help preserve it and keep it in its shape, for example. Why not slice real cheese and give real cheese to your child so you know it's 100% cheese? So when you look at the back of cheese, at these cheeses like Amul cheese, not only says processed, but it then contains trans fat, it contains these preservatives, it contains like sodium nitrate, which is a type of preservative, additives, and then these ghee numbers as well sometimes to help emulsify the solids together and create like the shape that it is. So you're not getting 100% real cheese. It's actually like fake cheese, basically.
The best option is to look for like block cheese that hasn't been kind of altered in its shape. And you can easily cut it in slices. You can grate it on the dosas, on the tikkis, on the pizza. And when you're looking at ingredients, I mean, when you see, it's quite obvious. You look, you will see. It'll say like milk solids. It will say E542. It will say like all these numbers, which is not something your gut or your kid's gut wants in there. And then so just look at the back and just look at the ones that have the least amount of ingredients, right? Generally, what should it just be? Just like milk and there's some rennet, or there's normally just 2-3 things when it comes to cheese. Low sodium like mozzarella, Swiss, ricotta. Those are great ones to start with. Kids can actually have cheese before 1 year of age. Around 9-10 months, you can start with a bit as well because it is really high in a lot of protein, good fats that kids need. So let's stay away from the processed ones and stick to simple cheese. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is the last section in dairy, which is yogurt. Because when you look at the supermarket, and especially in India, like it's just crazy that, and especially in all over the world, first of all, the kids' yogurts out there, they say strawberry yogurt and they'll put like Peppa Pig there and like everyone gets excited. And then you look at the amount of added sugar, it's like 24, like it's crazy, the amount of added sugar. So can you just give us a list of when we're looking for yogurt, what do we need to look for and what do we need to avoid for our kids?
So when buying yogurt and cheese, definitely look for full fat. Full fat Greek yogurt is a great option. Remember, our kids' brains are 50% fat, so they need those fats. They need it like densely in their diet. So also full fat contains a lot more protein, a lot more calcium. They also have probiotics, but yes, like less fat or zero fat yogurts have as well, but they're just a lot more less like dense. So I would say avoid the sugared ones. They are very high in sugar, and add in those fruits yourself to plain yogurt, and then adding like cinnamon, for example, to give it a little bit more sweetness, a little bit of honey as well is a good option.
In India, guys, please watch out. A lot of these yogurts that our kids are having, it says double toned. And double toned actually means it's been processed and it's actually been milk solids with water. So it's low fat. So don't offer your kids double toned milk. So this is something that's very popular in India. And full fat and no added sweeteners in it. Just do regular yogurt and add things to it. As you were saying, that's a great idea. Just add the fruit yourself. It's so much better. Thank you, Monica, so much for joining us on the podcast. It was a great refresher for me because I know we've spoken about all of this, but I think it'll be a very enlightening episode for all the parents out there who are going out and buying these products daily for kids. Guys, please make better choices. Just look in the back, read the ingredients, and you can definitely make a better choice for your kids and the family. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sanchita.